Leighton.
Peter.
Thanks for joining me. Thanks
My
for
pleasure.
taking your time and to meet with me here. You have a pretty interesting story to share. Usually I'm meeting with guys who are talking about hot rods, American classic cars, the restorations process and everything else surrounding this automotive world here, American classic car world. But you exactly extending my world and extending my knowledge for American racing world. Because that's your story, yes?
Yeah, that's my story. I'm kind of retired from that now, but I had a pretty good career, I think, and it was just all about being hell-bent to race and make it happen and be professional and make a living doing it.
Yes.
And,
for quite a bit, because we're not talking here about some short run. We're not talking about few years. We're talking about some
28 years.
28 years. That's
But
mind-blowing number.
That's starting from a local circle track or ice racing in Minnesota on frozen lakes, and which wasn't real professional, and then working my way all the way to the top and being a factory racing team.
Frozen lakes of Minnesota. Wow, you just bringing back some exactly past few photographs. They're vintage photographs. I think mostly somewhere in Scandinavia when they were racing on the ice. That's some special skill.
Well, it's actually with the studs that we used, it ends up being like driving on a gravel road, a dirt road. So you can slide like a rally car, but it's a lot more tire grip than just rubber tire against ice. It's got these studs like little spikes, and they dig into the ice like crazy. It's a lot of fun. So relatively safe, but we'd still be going 115 miles an hour, 130 miles an hour once in a while, depending on how long straightaways there were, and if you had a powerful car or not.
Which you had.
I had, we had lots of ice racing cars over the years. So, where I came from in Minnesota, it's frozen up there 6-7 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So the summers are short, and as I got older, I spent more and more time in the south.
Frozen lakes of Minnesota. That's. How old you were back then?
I was probably 26 or 27.
Wow.
Maybe a little younger.
Yeah.
So, a lot of our cars I had a Volkswagen Scirocco. Actually, I had a bunch of them. But
really? This one exactly I'm familiar with. Again, being from Poland, right by the border with Germany, me and German cars, Corrados, Scirocco, all those Volkswagens, GTIs, and of course later on the Audis, Mercedes, BMW Streets, all those cars I'm familiar with. But it's unique to hear you racing them here in the United States back in the days.
Yeah, and Volkswagen's had a strong presence here ever since after World War II. But one car I bought from a lady next door to me, it was a little bit rusty and broken, and $20. And we stripped out all the interior.
Yeah, right, $20.
Yeah, and then, probably put a couple thousand into it at the time, which was a lot of money, but rebuild the engine and whatnot, and put a roll cage in, and we're learning fabrication and race car building skills at the same time, even though I'm a young guy and relative novice, and a lot of fun. We could race cheaply, and it was affordable, and we learned so much, and eventually we started winning races and poles and races and championships, and I thought, wow, I got something going here, and we converted one of our ice racing cars into a Volkswagen, it was already a Volkswagen Scirocco, but we made it into a circle track car, a stock car, and big wide tires on it, all lowered down, basically what would be a Super V motor for a Formula Series at the same time, a screaming little 1800cc Volkswagen Scirocco engine with dual gigantic Weber carburetors on it, and headers and all that, special cam, and we started winning races with that thing, and it was that we were just on our way. So my ice racing turned into a team effort. I had a friend that wanted to race with me, and now I was racing a tube frame Saab Sonnet with a Mazda rotary 13B engine.
Wow.
with a 901 Porsche transmission. So all that from a 901 transmission from a 914. So we moved all that driveline to the front to make it a front-wheel drive car, because the 914 is a mid-engine car.
Yes.
So it worked, and we won a championship with that. And in fact, we won the race the first time out with that car. It was pretty cool. It was tube frame, had fiberglass and styrofoam panels inside that were laminated with epoxy and fiberglass on each side, and fit into all the geometrical shapes of the openings in the tube frame, and I'm talking the floor and everything. And not only was it strong and well insulated, it was our early learning about composites and whatnot. So making wings and all this stuff played into my future later. Yeah, we had a ground effects tunnel inspired by Formula One on that car, and it was a good little car.
Huh.
So we had a lot of fun racing ice, and won a bunch of championships. I eventually had my first foray into factory involvement with a friend of mine who's a quite well-known road racer, Peter Cunningham, out of Wisconsin. He introduced me to a guy named Dix Erickson, who ran the special projects for Honda back in the 80s. And they were looking for a shop to run this team out of. And so we used my shop in Minneapolis, downtown Minneapolis.
What a story. Racing on the ice. Yeah, but what you can do, when you said how many months a year you have snow there? 7 or 8?
6, but it's, it's a very short summer and seemingly a very, very long winter.
Yes, and then you as a young person already catching the bag of racing, first of all, and racing, of course, is connected with your skills of being mechanic, in fabricator, and you learning on your own, and then you getting together with group of friends. That's amazing story.
The ice racing was pretty big at the time. We actually had a factory team with Peter Cunningham, and I got to know a bunch of guys at Honda, and this Dix Erickson fellow was very influential on me and Peter Cunningham. Great guy, passed away a long time ago now, but the Archers were in it with Chevrolet. The Orr brothers were in it with Volkswagen. We had good connections. There wasn't a whole lot of TV going on back then, especially in the winter. IndyCar and NASCAR, are on the off season. So not ESPN, but TNN came and started shooting racing for us, and they did a lot of NASCAR stuff back in the day. And they'd send a film crew out, and Larry Nuber and the announcer and a couple other guys, and we were on the TV all winter.
Wow.
And I'd get to their summer races later, and they said, "Man, I can't believe how much TV you guys got." So we actually had some IndyCar drivers come up and do races with us.
Wow.
The races were pretty big in Minnesota. I mean, they have a St. Paul Winter Carnival, which is a giant festival that goes for a week. And then our race on Lake Phelan would be at the end of it, and a couple times they got more than 50,000 people to come and see these things. Yeah, so,
wow.
And but back to this story, we got some money from Honda. They gave us 4 cars, which they converted to race cars in Los Angeles and brought them to us. And they had a crew of people that would commute from LA and back. Parker Johnstone, an IndyCar driver, was one of our 4 drivers.
Wow.
And Yeah, it was a good time of my life, and I was learning how to deal with factories and what they wanted. And basically, I can tell you this: factories are only interested in two things. If they have a racing team, they want to win races and they want to win championships. That's the only reason they're in. So that gave me a good understanding at the time, and that's what we always strive for. And
you knew where you want to be if you want to be in this world and pursue.
I was having a lot of fun racing now, and I thought, wow, if I can turn this into a job and make a living doing it, it would be really good. At the same time, all this was going on. Layton's Garage was in its infancy, and I had a couple mechanics, and we had enough spare space to house like 3 or 4 cars at the time, and we started buying shop equipment and this and that, welders, saws, whatnot, and it kind of took off. So my garage business was originally started so I could maybe have some space and afford entry-level race cars, and now the garage was getting bigger and the racing was getting bigger at the same time.
Wow.
And it both went up and up and up for 25 years or more. So here we are in Naples.
Meaning you help also other racers there, yes? You were slightly mentor maybe to them or some advices?
I'm more of a mentor now. I was the young guy on the team at the time, or the guy with the least experience. But I had good mechanical knowledge, and I was a decent driver. So
and that's the story, your mechanical knowledge exactly, which pushed you so far, so fast to the top. Because we talking about this, that you were really racing and you were professional. You became professional racer. But that wasn't just racing. You were achieving the top positions.
Well, I read a lot of books on racing and, how you do it, and books on sponsorship that I learned quite a bit from, and how to create value with a race team.
Yes.
So, when you go racing, or when you're racing, the reality of it is there's 5 or 6 maybe cars that can win the race out of 30. So if you get within that group, you got a shot at winning, and a lot of people are racing for entertainment, and they're perfectly fine and happy just going to the race weekends and being part of the event.
Yeah.
And that seems to go all the way up to the top levels, and although there are upsets and that sort of thing, but in general that's the situation. So, but you need everybody, and I read a lot on suspension theory and fabrication and composites, which is carbon fiber and fiberglass and epoxies and matrices and stuff like that, making molds. This the more we did it, the better we got at it. We started making a hood scoop on the what do you call it, the Saab Sonnet, and then make the whole front end a flip front end and stuff like that. And we had later in our days when we were driving bigger and faster cars in the Trans Am series and IMSA and whatever, they we had all these skills from the early days how to repair the bodywork and things like that. So that everything we could do in-house would save a lot of money.
Yes.
And eventually they would make us money, because if you're working with a budget that somebody gives you, you want to not spend it all, because you got to make a living too. So you work backwards and try to save as much but be as competitive as you can. The next chapter of my life, after I got out of ice racing, or I transitioned into another series, and it was a Pro-Am situation called the Firestone Firehawk situation, or Firestone Firehawk series, and it was part of IMSA. Now, I was kind of a busy guy. I was a mechanic on a Porsche 962, the purple one, that the number 10 car that the Hotchkiss family owned. So I was flying around all over the U.S. at the time, plus had my shop, plus finished ice racing. And
I mean, here in this point, I need to stop because how I'm always saying, I'm coming to all those meets with the guys as a blank page. Yes, I'm from Poland. Yes, I have a little knowledge, but I'm coming really as a blank page. So first of all, my question is, what is IMSA, yes,
yeah.
which you said first of all.
That's International Motorsports Association, and it's a big organization. It was originally part of road racing, part of NASCAR, and then it split off, and now it's I believe it's part of them again. They merged with the Grand Am Series, which was NASCAR, which I did race in for quite a while. And it's one big happy family now. But they raced the Daytona 24 hours. They raced the Sebring 12 hours. And they race another 15 races all around the country. And Canada and Mexico sometimes and whatnot. It's a traveling, super high-end professional road race series. Yeah. And they have a couple different classes. And I was getting exposed to these classes, and I would be working on this 962, but there'd be other guys working on these pro showroom stock cars, just like a car you buy, put safety modifications on, and it was this wildly popular series. So I had a friend in Minnesota that was on my ice racing team named Bradley Hoyt, and he was part of our three-car team ice racing series, and we actually bought a Camaro to go racing in this thing. We were going Porsche Camaro, and at the time I decided on the Camaros, and Brad was going to buy us a new car, and he did, and we bought, it was not competitive, but Chevrolet came out with a special Firehawk car, and they made a batch of about 17 or 20 of them, something like that, and my friend Brad bought one, and it was a huge step up, and we had an engine built for it. You were allowed to balance and blueprint the engines, which just keeps everything dimensionally optimized, but makes a little bit more power, and it's definitely worth doing. But it's not building a hot rod. It's just building a perfect motor, which was within the rules, and. Somehow the two of us won 2 races in that series.
Wow.
And I caught the attention of Chevrolet, and remember they just want to win races. And I got a call halfway through our second season that they wanted me to join the Mecum racing team, which is the same family that owns Mecum Auctions, Dana Mecum and whatnot, that all the street riders and classic car guys go to. But at the time they had the factory Chevrolet Firehawk team, so I was very thrilled to be a driver on that team, and I won with my future brother-in-law at the time, now, a guy named Mitch Wright, who had a good career racing cars too.
Wow.
And that was a lot of fun. So, and I hung with those guys for about 3 years, and it was got to meet a lot of people and this and that.
Spectacular. Yeah, so you mentioned, so you have pretty nice photo album here. I see it's
a Volkswagen Rabbit GTI. Yes. That's the next page is my factory Honda team, where Peter Cunningham actually put the deal together. But and we had sponsorship from General Tires and Honda, and a lot of stuff going on back then. So learning a lot.
Big steps already back then during your young years.
Wow, what a build! That's the Saab Sonnet. That raced in a modified class, and it was very fast, and won a championship with it, and it was a lot of fun.
It's the wing on the hood.
It actually had a wing where the struts of the wing were mounted on top of the front suspension, and this was an invention of an engineer friend of mine named Mike Lindorfer. And truly the Formula One cars were doing such a thing on the rear axle at the time too, or earlier than that, but it was later outlawed, but it was legal for ice racing. So as the car would go up and down,
yes,
the wing would go up and down with the wheels. So the force that the wing is making downforce only pushes on the front wheels, and the car can ride independently. So there you can see there's struts and braces and all on rod ends and little ball joints, so it could move around. It was a pretty clever deal.
And that's the story with racing, you know, me being car enthusiast and crazy about cars. And then I like racing too. I mean, being from Europe, we didn't have NASCAR or anything like that, but I was watching all the time, of course, Formula One, you know, Michael Schumacher back then, years, but also big was WRC.
Yeah.
And I was watching those races. But you're watching this as a teenager kid, you mostly like enjoying as an entertainment, but as I'm getting older and I'm talking with more like with the guys with the classic cars or even sports cars, and you learning a lot. There is so much science behind the racing, and that's what really exactly, except your skills of racing, the science behind it, building the car to win those races, especially right now, it's just...
Well, we were learning.
And that's the story with you. You learn so much, and you learn by yourself, exactly.
Right,
you know?
right. And... yeah, it's a never-ending process, and you just have to keep absorbing and absorbing. So good things were happening to us. That picture you're looking at right there is one of the few factory assisted GM Camaros they made. It was a Firehawk edition, and the series was sponsored by Firestone Firehawk tires, and they're doing the IndyCar thing right now. And in fact, here's an ad with a bunch of race-winning drivers, and that's me right there in the corner.
There you go.
And so we're starting to get, national notoriety and things like that. And these races were all televised. And if you're trying to get a career going in racing, you want to go where they pay prize money, and you want to go where they're on television.
You have nicely documented here your years too.
So after the Firehawk series, I got into the AC Delco ASA, American Speed Association Stock Car Series, and it was a traveling series, and it went from Pennsylvania to Minnesota, down to Missouri and Kansas. We went all over the place in the Midwest. So they had a good TV package, and they had a couple road races that got me interested in it. And I did really well in the road races. Somehow I got 5 second places and never won one in that series, but it was still a lot of learning, and we did get some help sponsorship-wise from various car dealerships and whatnot, and a little help from Chevrolet, and GM called us one day and said, "We want you to run a Pontiac." So we did, and we switched our Chevy Lumina into a Pontiac Grand Prix. It was just a matter of changing all the bodywork.
That's right.
So that series was a lot of fun, and man, I really struggled in the circle track races. By the time I was getting out of it after 3 years, I was starting to get mediocre in the circle track, the stock car racing. I mean, it's just so hard to make a car go fast when you're only doing left turns. I mean, these guys are really good at it. My hat's off to them. But, and we were racing guys like Johnny Benson and Mark Martin and a bunch of really good short track racers, and guys would drop in from NASCAR every now and then. So it was pretty fun. And it paid good money. It paid all the way down to like 30th place. So we could run the deal a little bit off of prize money, and but after that came a really important chapter in my life. I know that I got the pole up at Mosport in Canada with an ASA stock car, and my car was somewhat similar to a Trans Am car, although we were running V6s. You could run a big a 305-inch V8 or 310-inch V8 in the Trans Am series, and our V6 wasn't a whole lot smaller than that, but we were within a second or two of the pole of what the Trans Am series was that raced there also. And I used to always want to run the Trans Am series, well televised race. They had like 670 horsepower V8s. I mean, it was real race cars. and I had helped various Trans Am teams out as a mechanic, as a younger guy, and off did all the racing and whatnot. So before I got into driving, I was really a traveling mechanic for various race teams. So the Trans Am Series was super fun, great TV, great prize money, paid $50,000 to win, had good tire sponsors that would give you tires depending on how you qualified, and just we could do a race with my crew chief Joe Conteric, my truck driver, and myself.
Wow.
So we had, if we were well prepared, we had a pretty small team, but we were very competitive.
That's
So,
the game.
and then we eventually got to be a 6-person team for one car, which was pretty decent. So we had a lot of fun in that series, won some, and finished 4th in the championship one year. And it was just a lot of, and we were always partnered with the IndyCar team at the time, CART. Or IndyCar series. So there was, like I said, one of my things was good prize money and good TV, and that's how you sell sponsorship. You got to get more eyeballs to see what you're doing. So you're looking at some Trans Am cars there.
Yes.
So they're quite unruly beasts. 180 mile an hour cars, pretty scary when you're going bumper to bumper or whatever, or walls around the track. But we'd race everywhere from Watkins Glen, New York, to Tampa, Florida, to Sebring, to Texas, to all over the country. So it was a lot of fun. California, Laguna Seca, Long Beach Grand Prix. So we were doing a lot of traveling. Portland, Oregon. Anyway, that was a great time of my life. After that, we did the World Challenge Series, and then we had a Corvette that was super competitive, and we built another Corvette because the rules were similar, and we would run Grand Am Series 2 in the GT class, and we'll have to get some pictures from a different book for that. But, by now I had a semi, and this really made for life a lot easier. We could haul 2 cars at once. Sometimes we'd go to a Trans Am or a World Challenge race, and then a week later we'd go to a Grand Am race because the cars were similar. We had 2 different cars, one for each series, and so we were racing 2 series at once for a couple of years, and skipping some of the Grand Am races because we were more dedicated to the World Challenge at the time. But this really got us, in front of the Chevrolet and whatnot, and we'd switched back to Corvettes from Pontiacs now. And but I knew a lot of people at Pontiac and whatnot, and eventually we quit both those series, or we got a factory deal with Pontiac to run the NASCAR Grand Am Series.
Wow.
And that was pretty much the crowning achievement of my career. I was a driver on the team, and we had 2 cars, and 2 other drivers, Kelly Collins and Paul Edwards, fantastic guys, super fast. And they actually won the championship with one of our team cars in 2008. And I was lucky to be a team owner, and my car, who I shared with a guy named Tim Lewis Jr., a really good driver, we finished 4th in the championship that year. So a lot of fun, a lot of work, unbelievable amount of work. All of a sudden my kids are 25 years old now, and I've been on the road most of the time. And the downside is I miss so many birthdays and funerals and family functions and stuff like that. And because, you race on Saturday or Sunday, and you got to be gone most of the week to prep. So, and
24/7.
And to get on top of your game, you got to live, eat, and breathe it.
Yes.
Make a lot of sacrifices, and but my family was good and strong, and my wife, she oversaw our Layton's Garage business, which
Meaning
is
you had good partner there.
yeah, good partner, good teammates, yep, all that stuff, and Layton's Garage is still going today, still going great up in Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Fantastic.
Got 6 guys up there banging away, and in fact, I'm going to see them in a couple weeks, so
That's nice.
looking forward to that.
Nice.
So we're traveling with a semi now. We're racing 2 series at once, so I'm getting a lot of exposure. And on these pro racing series, I mean, there's a lot of factory involvement. So I know Mark Kent, the GM racing director at the time, and some of the managers that work under him that manage road racing. And, we have a semi. We have, good sponsorship from a company called Banner Engineering in Minnesota. They make optical sensors, still doing a fantastic job today. I mean, they have 2,000 products. And among other things, they're a big supplier to GM of sensing sensors, metal sensors, position sensors, proximity sensors, everything. So they were a huge part of my racing for 15 years, and we climbed the ladder together, Banner Engineering and me, and so we had this pretty polished road racing team running 2 series at once, had about 6, 7, 8 guys coming to the races, mechanics, crew guys, even had a chef that would come with us part-time, because you can't throw the tools down when you got to qualify at 1 in the afternoon. You can't stop at noon for lunch. The cars have to be perfect and they have to be ready. And so it was actually more efficient to bring a chef with us and this and that. So GM, they had a opening, and Pratt Miller, the guys that run the Corvette, they were trying to get this Pontiac deal. And I was lucky enough to get it. They had Pratt Miller, who actually built the cars that we ended up using in Grand Am, the Pontiac GXP.Rs, those cars. They were running the factory Corvette team anyway, which was 10 times bigger than our team. And so I didn't feel bad about those guys not getting the deal. But now all those guys are really good friends with us. We partnered with them for 3 years. And like I said, we were already adept at hauling 2 cars around. So for us to haul 2 Pontiacs instead of 2 Corvettes was not a big transition. And it was a lot of fun. So we ended up winning the NASCAR Grand Am GT Championship in 2008. Chip Ganassi and his Telmex team won the Daytona Prototype Series that year. And Chip's a friend of mine, and it was just a great time of my life, but all things come to an end. And we raced a couple more years after our factory deal, and I was a team owner, but I just didn't quite have the motivation as when I was a driver, and I was selling our own wares, So we did we had various drivers and guest drivers and whatnot. We had a big, huge crash with the Cool TV Camaro. That kind of took the wind out of our sails. The car went end over end at Road America. And with Gunter Schaldock driving, fortunately, nothing happened to Gunter. But as he said, he was okay, but he killed the car. It wasn't his fault. We had a little brake issue that put us into the fence. That's our semi right there. Nice. So, anyway, that's my story.
That's spectacular story.
And I still, like I said, I still have Layton's Garage. I learned a lot about dealing with corporate people and corporate situations, contracts, things like that. And I'm semi-retired now, but we've got some great managers up at Layton's Garage and great technicians, and that's going very nicely. And we just live in Florida now and enjoy it.
Yes. Yeah, you mentioned the IMS first, and then you mentioned the Porsche 962. And I love Porsches, especially the classic ones. I mean, 962, we're talking about special.
Yeah, when I was early in the Firehawk series, and I was getting exposure to the Firehawk series, and I said earlier that I was a mechanic. Well, I was a mechanic on a friend of mine's car. His name is John Hotchkiss. He owns Hotchkiss Suspension, very successful aftermarket company. Anyway, I I was a mechanic on this 962, and that was the premier car in IMSA in the mid '80s, and ran for the overall win in Daytona 24 Hours. A version of it, the 956, won Le Mans, and anyhow, you could actually order a 962 right from any Porsche dealer. And the factory ended up building, I believe, around 70 of them before they handed off the manufacturing to independent people like Fabcar. But so I'm a mechanic on this thing. I'm seeing the Firehawk races, and I want to be in that series. But in the meantime, I was out at Riverside. I was at Laguna. We were all over the place with the Hotchkiss team. And the Hotchkiss family owned their own car, and they had some sponsorship from Wins and whatnot. The car is beautifully restored right now. They actually had two of them. We were at the Miami Grand Prix, and the original one got badly damaged, so they bought another car. And they were expensive, but cheap by today's standards. I think they were $370,000. Nobody could believe the door cost $18,000 back then. But so it was still a lot of money, but they were factory available, and if Porsche wanted to sell you one, they would. And anyhow, like 40 years later, the family still has one of these cars, and they're doing vintage racing in it. And my friend John Hotchkiss calls me and said, "Hey, do you want to run in the Al Holbert Memorial GTP race at Sebring?" And I said, "Sure," with the 962. And he said, "Yeah." And I was, "Wow, okay, I want to do it." And so we went down there. It was 34 GTP cars in the race, and it was a historic weekend, but a special one because it was the Al Holbert Memorial. A great IMSA racer who had the Lowenbrau car and sadly died in an airplane crash. But anyway, a great IMSA champion. So we went to Sebring, and they had, my friend had a Pirelli tire truck, and it was all catered. It was, man, I'm not used to racing like this, especially back then. Anyway, we ended up second in that race. The first time I drove the car, I was extremely nervous, and I'm accelerating out of the pits, and bam! And I thought, oh no, somebody rear-ended me. I wrecked the car already, and this is $1 million car now. And turns out the boost came on with so ferociously, it scared the hell out of me, and I thought I got rear-ended. But anyway, I got used to that. I mean, this big old car, had 800 horsepower and a 4-speed, and it was brutally fast. I mean, it would just pin you in the seat in acceleration. And even in fourth gear, 160, 70 miles an hour at Sebring, even faster actually. But you're still pinned in the seat all the way till you take your foot off the gas. And ferocious brakes, true ground effects. And I got the car to wiggle on me a couple times, like in turn 1, which is a very bumpy, fast track turn at Sebring. And scared the hell out of me. And anyway, we ultimately came second in the race. It was a great day for us. There's some pictures of that, and honestly, it was a great honor to be asked to drive it. And they called me up for another Porsche reunion race called the Porsche 50, and it was at Watkins Glen. And I very, very respectfully declined because this car was brutal, man. I really felt like I could hurt myself in this thing, and even though it was a beautiful car, and I was racing a museum piece, so and it wasn't mine. So I was very used to driving my own cars.
Yeah, it's classic for racing. It's classic for Porsche. That's the Le Mans car.
Right.
So we're talking about the history.
But we got a good finish, and I think that picture you had off the internet was Dorsey Schroeder, friend of mine, great racer, TV commentator now, had a huge history racing. He won the race with a GTP Pratt & Miller car. So everybody's all kind of tied together in this deal.
One big family.
And yeah, it is a family. And a lot of racers, switch from series to series. And I was lucky that I had a pretty well-rounded career. So had a lot of fun, made some money, made a lot of friends, made some enemies. That's the way it goes.
Create a journey, create a path, make memories.
Yeah, it's been good to me. I've been able to use the skills I learned racing in my car repair business, which, you know, at one time was 3 shops, and now it's back to 1. So, and I learned a lot from the shop that applied to my racing. So it's all been good. It's been a great journey. Had great partners in my wife Katie and my family and all my crew, and it's hard to duplicate today, but people are doing it. So.
Yeah, fantastic story, amazing journey. You created your own path, and but that would be I think on the end of our chat, which I really appreciate once again that you join me and you share your story. What would be your kind of advice for anybody who would like to start right now? Yes, we have some young racers I'm observing here and there, but
I would say, you know, I get asked that a lot. Actually, it's a tough business, and a lot of business involved. But if you want to get into it, you know, make the decision early in your life and start meeting the right people. Go to the tracks. Go to the tracks that interest you. I would highly recommend trying to find series that are on television, series that pay prize money, and but you know nowadays karting is really popular, you know, for kids and adults even.
It's funny that you mentioned it, because I was always interested to try at least. You know, I mentioned before I would like to try some a little racing with the instructor. I'm not talking even about by myself, but just go to maybe Sebring. Here we have close little ride with the instructor.
Right. Go to an autocross. Go to a driving school. Go anything. Make sure this is something you want to get into. And you know, a few can make it to where you actually can make a living at it. You know, but you have to have something to sell. Nobody's going to give you money and say, here, go have fun, or go racing. You have to scratch their back too. You have to give them something that they can't get otherwise.
I mean, you're 24/7. You're 24/7 out. You gotta get the knowledge about the car, exactly, because that's what started with you. So.
Yeah, I was a struggling guy in junior high school, and the only thing that saved me, you know, was machine shop. And I excelled in welding and car repair and metalworking and whatnot. And, you know, all of a sudden I'm getting good grades. But now I understand the need. I need to understand math better. So I better start paying attention in math and geometry, because race cars, believe it or not, are all engineering and all math. And everything from gear ratios to temperatures to this and that. So, but I got to thank this fantastic sponsor that was most important in my racing days, and that's Banner Engineering. So we actually worked out a deal with Banner Engineering where we developed, with their help, a company picnic, traveling company picnic, basically. So we would take one of our semis on the way to a race, and we would go to one of their distributors, like Cleveland Conveyor Belt, for instance, and they sold everything besides conveyor belts, everything to run factories and whatnot. But we would set up and get one of the race cars out of the truck, and we'd all be wearing our crew uniforms, and there'd be 3-4 guys there from my team, and Banner would send some helpers and some salespeople, and they'd do training of their product at the thing, and distributor itself would have a caterer barbecue come in and invite all their customers and their customers' families, and sometimes there'd be a couple hundred people at these deals, and it'd be very successful. So, and you know, we'd give away hats and take pictures of kids in the race cars and stuff, and it'd be just a good fun afternoon on our way to the race.
Nice.
And we'd give away tickets to the race, or you know, some VIPs would come to the race, and they'd kind of have a backstage pass. Now, at the time, as this got more developed, we had 15, 18 guys on the crew. So we'd have like 6 or 8 guys that would go with us, and then we'd have fly-in guys that would come from Charlotte or stock car country or whatever. They'd just be our weekend warrior helpers, and we'd actually have a chef and everything. So it was a well-oiled machine. But I'd see guys get sponsorships over the years, and then they'd lose them right away because they didn't do anything for the sponsor. And I've lost sponsors too because they didn't see an increase in sales or whatever, so they couldn't justify it anymore. So you have to find the right niche that works for your sponsor and works for you. So, and then, and seriously, a good half or a third of the effort has to go into maintaining your relationship with your sponsor. So all the stuff we did with Banner Engineering over the course of 14 years, and by the way, they were very integral and important part of the deal that we did with GM too. And they're a major supplier to GM at their factories for the automated equipment for building cars. So it just, everything all tied together. But Banner was huge in working with GM and this and that. They both had the same goals for exposure and victory and camaraderie and all that stuff. So it was just a fantastic time of my life. It's all in my rear view mirror. I get lots of offers to drive somebody's vintage car or what, but I don't do it. I decline every time. I'm just here goofing off with some Porsche restoration stuff. Could never afford these cars when they were new, so now I got to have old ones now. So, but I'm happy. So,
are you going once in a while to any races around somewhere?
Yeah, I do. So
Nice.
I go to some IndyCar races. I go to some IMSA races, Sebring and whatnot. So.
I'm gonna join you for once. I just went a few months ago exactly to St. Petersburg to IndyCar race. That was my first time. Spectacular experience. But yeah, next time when you gonna go somewhere, I would like to join you. So anyway, Leighton, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story.